Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott back again for another episode of the Nolecast. I don't think there's a whole lot of news that we need to catch up on, Bud. If we've got a little this and that we need to discuss, sounds like things are going very well for the 2024 draft of NFL Knowles. I
See
know
that?
Mr. Jones out at the East-West game and Renardo continue to be very impressive. Fabian, tons of positive reports on him. Great to see the movement that Jordan Travis is making. If you've seen some of those clips that have come from his Instagram, so no, I think Green, Jones, and Fabian are all really setting themselves up to be drafted well. And just personally, Jarian Jones is the is the kid that I will forever remind myself of as to the progress that kids have the ability to make, personal maturation, everything there. Really proud of him. Kid's going to get drafted and set himself up very nicely for the rest of his life. And my man, all those guys really put in the work. So great to see them getting recognized, and excited to talk more about this as April comes.
We should give it an annual Jarian Jones Don't Give Up award.
Mhm.
Not an annual, because there's not always a guy like this. Whenever it occurs, maybe it's every 3 years or something like that. But a guy who, to go from one of the defensive backs that ACC receivers most wanted to face 3 years ago to a defensive back that was locked down this year, it's freaking awesome. So that was pretty cool, man. But Graham, I was told that players opting out of the bowl game was indicative of terrible culture.
Yeah, terrible.
I can't see any of these players being drafted.
Almost like a kid knew that this is his chance and wanted to go make the most of it, and excited for all those guys. So we'll continue to monitor their progress. We'll thank our friends, the legendary team. Chad has been brilliant to work with for you and more than 500 of our listeners. So 844 FSU Loan. Want to thank them off the top. I believe this is something that Chad has always enjoyed and kept an eye on. So today will be the snap count review. We'll go back and look at it, what we can take from what transpired, where you got lucky, where you an educated guess turned positive, or whatever else. I know a lot of y'all have been asking about this one. So with the absence of otherwise significant information, other than a little draft prep and other than a little bit of a facility upgrade that's going on about 1,000 yards to my right, there's not a whole lot of news out there right now. So this will be the snap count draft. Thanks to the legendary team for making it possible. And Bud will jump into it here.
Yes, sir. So look at that, putting it on the screen, and I've color coded the players who most exceeded or maybe didn't quite hit the numbers that we had projected for them. Probably our fault, not necessarily theirs. Especially the ones in red, oftentimes were almost exclusively due to injury. So, yeah, man, this is a fun exercise we do every year. It's just something I think it's kind of unique, right? And we each get a certain allotment of snaps that are projected. I will say the bowl game, it did not decide the result, which I'll get to in a second, but it did kind of it made a little bit wonky at the end there because you got about 70 extra snaps for certain guys. It was like, okay, like this guy wouldn't have otherwise played, but certainly not enough to swing the result. You got me, man. You got me. 62-53 for you on offense. Me, 33-34. So not a good showing for me on the offensive side. We'll get to that. Defensively, I got you 57-05 to 45-94. But net, you got me by about 1,500. So that is that's a whooping. Nicely done.
Awesome. Great. I believe we've just ping-ponged this back and forth, and happy to have not broken serve. And yeah, we always give each other a assigned charity, and it's not as though we haven't talked about this for a month, so I should have one on the top of my head, but I will follow up with you in the near future, Bud, as to where that charitable gift can be made. And yeah, why don't we just go through this, look at some of the ones that really jump out. Well done on the color coding. That really does give you an idea as to where some of these, either big losses or misses transpired, and then you can look at them and go, I wonder why that was, or whatever else. But Keandre Jones, that one jumps out up to me. Yeah,
Man,
that one played out.
That is green. So let's go back and just sort of remember what our thoughts were on Keandre preseason, because he came in. Was he in for spring? I'm trying to think. He was.
I believe I saw him in spring and thought feet not the fastest, but if he gets a hold of you, you're in trouble. And ultimately played the number of snaps this year that I thought maybe he would potentially be in line for next year. But I mean, we went off the board at 40, ended up playing 451 snaps. A guy that by the end of the year was a starter for all intents and purposes, and very much worked his way into a rotation that featured him prominently, and a guy that I know they're excited about next year as well.
Yeah, man. As he continues to get in better shape, it's just it's nobody's gonna be unhappy about having a guy. Is he a 6th year? I'm trying to think. Keandre. No, I think he's a 5th year, isn't he? Googling this here.
I think he's 5th, but I don't know that with certainty.
Right, because he would have had to have played in 2020. There are not a lot of guys left who actually have 6th years in college football. This is one of the last years you can actually have that. But yeah, I mean, look, playing 411 snaps is sort of a byproduct of a couple things. One, he got in a little bit better shape as the year went on, and we do this right before the season starts. So look, we've had the opportunity to actually see some fall camp, and make somewhat informed decisions here. And yet it still probably goes to show how hard it is to just perfectly project this kind of stuff. It's a funny shaped ball, and it's a funny shaped sport. So 411 snap net for you there is huge. He got better. The other issue was, if you look at the other guys on the offensive side, Rob Scott really struggled to stay healthy this year, unfortunately. You'd love to see him have a year at full health. But with Rob, only playing 191 snaps, you had to kick Washington out the tackle at times. And then Bless got dinged up, right? So, having to play Washington at tackle more means that you're having to play somebody else at guard, right? And Roddick at times needed a blow, and sometimes just needed a mental reset on the sideline. And that was something that Keandre was able to give him, and Meach at the same time, right? So you think, okay, you got a starting 5. Very few teams roll through the season just playing 5 offensive linemen. FSU played about 8 over the course of the season. Like eight guys got significant snaps on the offensive line, and you needed them all to have a 13-0. Well, I guess 13-1, but whatever, like a 13-0 season, and that was pretty special. So, great pick by far the greatest value pick of the entire snap count draft. All right, so my top value actually was Casey Roddick, and I went 440 on him, which is a pretty good number, and he ended up playing 697 snaps, so that is a ton. Played at an okay level, probably not every type of, I don't know, maybe not to the maximum like percentile projection that you would have hoped, but still at an adequate level. Certainly the team went, it did go 13-0. So you got out of him, maybe not everything you had hoped, but certainly if I told you in the preseason, hey, he's going to play 697 snaps, you take that. Absolutely. So
yeah, his number a little larger than what I would have expected. Just looking at this, looking at and we'll go through these, but Mo Smith 730 snaps, Meach 617, Darius 519, Byers, this is the one, 809 snaps from Byers last year. So I took him at 6'10" and still got a positive 199 out of it. Just an idea as to the pieces that were rotated and the pieces that weren't. And credit to Jeremiah there for just availability and making it through all that, and know that excited to see what that looks like in year 2.
100%. All right. So who else here stands out on a positive note that allowed you to win this thing?
I mean, Mo Smith, we're just talking about the number of snaps offensive lineman. For Mo Smith to give you 730 snaps and felt like he battled through probably 724 of them. Just, credit to you, Mo. And then one where I got a nice little bump. Well, I mean, the Brooklyn, that was fortunate. My number was 40. And, absent a bowl game, that's probably a pretty good number.
Yeah.
Is it Keon? Yeah. So Coleman spent 510 snaps on for a wide receiver, which is significant. Dude ended up playing 672. I mean, that's obviously nobody expected 3 touchdowns in the LSU game, but that's a kid being an even bigger part of the offense than I would have thought coming in. And trust me, I had seen. Keon didn't catch me by surprise. I'll put it that way. But again, credit to a kid putting up with injuries, overcoming some nagging things to turn in that many snaps.
He really kind of was doing the NFL thing in the second half of the season, where either you don't practice or you practice kind of on a limited basis because you're dinged up, and then with the exception of the Pitt game, was ready to go. And we see it a lot from NFL guys, right? It's like questionable all week on the report, and then he's playing again. Like Gronkowski in New England for like almost 2 years was like, yeah, practicing, no. Well, he got it out. Yeah, so that was awesome to see. I would argue that 730 snaps for Mo Smith in the condition that he was in was certainly a great number for you, and a absolute testament to how tough Mo is. I don't think 730 snaps with his physical condition was an optimal level, and it's probably a commentary on the lack of a backup center who they could really trust. Because I think you'd probably sit him down a little bit more in some of these games to allow him to have more of a rest. Or if down the stretch, when he's really hurting, if you had somebody else you really trusted there at center, which I'm sure will be a goal this offseason as well for Alex Atkins to develop somebody else who can snap and can be trusted to snap and block it up. Especially because Darius kind of can do it, but also you needed him at tackle as well. So that was kind of a problem there at times. But man, 700, when you take a look at that, 730 for a guy who was as banged up as he was, that's a tough dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I when I see people who are like, oh, Mo Smith's getting pushed back. Yeah, man. Well, guess what? Like, if they had somebody else who was a lot better, they'd play him.
Yeah.
And he's dinged up more than I think some folks know, and he's gutted it out. So credit to Mo Smith.
Here's an interesting position to look at, bud. All right, so Kyle Morlock, you took 350. He ended up playing 551. Jaheim Bell, you took 300. He ended up playing 451. And I took Preston Daniel with 20. Ended up playing 89. So all 3 of your tight ends clear their expected number by a significant amount. Just telling as to what they had to do with some of the stuff at wide receiver, and also what they want to do with that position in the offense in general. But yeah, certainly some of that was made all the more evident by the end of the season stretch the wideouts went through and lack of availability.
And Biscuit, I took him for 240. He went 210.
Okay.
I mean, so yeah, they lived in double tight sets this year. Just completely lived. I actually think I have some stats on that. FSU played. Where's their formation stuff? Formation summary. Yeah, I actually have this. I think they played. Pull it up here. This is great podcasting. Just fantastic.
Great podcasting. Definitely.
This does take a little bit to sort. Okay, so they played. They played 328 snaps on the year in 12 personnel, and 23 snaps in 13. So, 350 plus snaps where they had at least 2. Oh, and they played 5 snaps in 02, which is 2 tight ends empty.
Mm-hmm.
And they played 5 more snaps in 22 personnel, and they played 4 more snaps in 04 personnel, which is no backs, 4 tight ends, and a receiver, which I'm guessing that's a misgrade by the service, but I'm going to look into because it's probably more like 13 with the guy flexed out. Do you remember them running 4 tight end sets at any time?
I don't recall that. I don't.
Not Wildcat, right? Anyway, so I mean, 360 snaps, let's call it, out of formations that use at least 2 tight ends on the field, and that is that's about half your snaps, honestly. So pretty interesting to look at there. They were in 11, about 43% of the snaps. Now, I think some of that's probably also classifying Jaheim as a receiver at times, with him being off, aligned off the ball. So, like, were these tight ends that good, or was it more of a commentary on the lack of health of the receiver room? I think they did try to use Jaheim at times, and he got dinged up too, as like a Micah Pittman replacement, and did so effectively at times. You ran some of the end around stuff to him, but it was an offense that operated at a heavy personnel and threw the ball outside the numbers to receivers quite a bit. You didn't really have a slot who you loved, and part of that's probably because, I mean, Destin Hill's first year in college football, man, and that was probably your biggest quote unquote miss pick, but he got dinged. Like he was hurt for a lot of the year, and I do think had he been healthy the whole time, there is certainly a chance that he would have played a good bit more, and maybe he's a guy who you would have depended on more in the slot. Kentron as well, right? I took Kentron for 320, and he played
242. You got some nice snaps there at the end of the season. I think also, and we'll think that good people at Congruity, Matt Lewis, if you spend a whole lot of time looking at spreadsheets like this, Matt Lewis may be somebody in your life that you could use, whether it be snap counts or whatever else. Been a fantastic addition to the Nolecast and many other businesses that I've been associated with over the past 2 years. CongruityHR.com is the website. Matt Lewis is the guy. Would encourage you to reach out to either him or myself if you'd like a third-party introduction. But a big thank you to Matt and his team at Congruity. Wanted to look at the running backs. So Toa Philly, pops in the lighter shade of green. I drafted at 290. He went for 361. Benson, credit to you here, bud. I think we also need to do a closest to the pin award or something like that.
We should.
You took Benson at 420. He hit 413. Rodney Hill, this is the one that jumped out to me. And after spring, man, I would have been right there with you. Just during spring, honestly, y'all, it was not uncommon for Rodney Hill to look like the best running back on the team. He was very, very good. Now, maybe there's some situational matchups that, made Rodney's skills and strengths jump out all the more as far as who he was going against. But even against top-level competition, I think the third play of a scrimmage that I went to was Rodney going 72 yards on the first-team defense. There were moments there, long-winded way of saying you drafted Rodney at 340, only had 109 snaps for negative 231. I don't remember injury necessarily being a thing there. I'm sure, like all running backs, he was beat up a little bit. What surprised me here, too, CJ Campbell, I drafted at 40. He went for 43. Okay. But the guy who I really would have thought, I might have gotten crazy good value with, particularly how he emerged, was who's the kid from Coco?
Holmes. Keziah Holmes, yeah.
Do I not have him on this list? I just pulled him up a second ago.
I had him at 130, and he played 90.
And he only went 90. So, excuse me, I was looking on the wrong side of the sheet. Yeah, running backs. Maybe that's just, our error for overemphasizing what we thought they would be in this offense. But, Benson almost to the number, Toa a little bit of a plus, and some of that's the end of the season way that he's featured as well. But then big hole at Rodney, and then not maybe, Keziah Holmes is running in as one of your, I don't know if he's running back one or whatever. That's what the coaches decide. But he's one of your prominent backs this year, after only taking 90 snaps. So interesting.
It's also an interesting commentary on the lack of two-back sets that FSU used this year, right? They
tied to the tight end discussion we just had a second ago, and some of those, position groupings that you were talking about. Absolutely.
So they played 100 snaps of 21, which is, they don't really get in the I formation a lot, but like 21 is your traditional two-back, one tight end stuff. They played 5 more snaps of two-back, two tight end, and they didn't play. I don't think they had any snaps of 23. So they had some empty. No. So I mean, like 100 snaps basically of 2 running back offense is not much, and that's not a criticism. It's just it. But if you read into it, did we overestimate how good these backs are? I don't know, because look, man, like you said, Rodney Hill in spring did look legit, and Holmes looked better than I thought he would look. And Benson is a guy who's going to get drafted pretty highly, so that is I don't think that they were poor by any stretch, but I did see that Rodney Hill is back at FAMU, I believe now. So honestly, there's no prize picks available for FAMU.
I wish. I'd be hitting them hard.
Man.
Hitting them very, very hard. Yeah.
Rodney Hill, on physical talent, should be the best back on FAMU. I'm almost certain. And that's a very, very good team for that level. But
yeah, Rodney Hill will be one of the dominant players in that section of football next year. Absolutely. So,
yeah. So quarterback Jordan, despite the injury, you still got a positive value there, 649, and you went for 580. I think part of that was how many close games would you be in? Like how much are you really trying to get the backups in and whatnot? Okay, so guys who missed their numbers, I think there are basically 2 categories here. So Destin got hurt. That's I think the number one reason for him missing. I mean, he was just injured. Robert Scott clearly is an injury one. Darrell Jackson is a administrative, not suspension, but just not cleared by the NCAA. Farmer missed by 73, and I don't think that's. He still played 427, so maybe that might be the drafter. Just really, I know you love some Josh Farmer, so I mean that guy he's a good player. 500.
I think the emergence of Braden Fisk too. I don't.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I went 460 on Fisk. He played 444. Obviously, skipped the bowl game, but no, I. So D tackle is a spot to look at here because we definitely have some interesting numbers. And I think you're hovering over there, Briggs.
Briggs and Fabian were the first 2 that I went to look at. Yeah, Briggs. Unfortunate. I saw the tweet you made a couple weeks ago about it's preposterous that we flag for targeting, but not for blocks that perhaps intentionally injure players and offset what otherwise is a pretty promising career path. And Briggs is at Illinois now, so certainly wish him the best of luck there. Great chance for him to, I guess, be featured more prominently. But yeah, that's a toughie. You took him at 400. He turned in 194 snaps. That's a negative 206 on that one, and that's tough.
Yeah, and I mean, just he was a really highly rated guy. He was a really promising young player, and just never was able to get back to that level of twitch that he had after that bullshit block from Louisville, right? So that sucks a lot. We already talked about Rodney Hill. Winston Wright, kind of the same thing, not able to fully bounce back from injury and wasn't in love with the role he had. But again, if Winston Wright had the health and level of ability that he showed at West Virginia before the car crash, again, which he was not at fault for, he probably plays more. You probably have your slot there, but just wasn't able to fully bounce back. I don't know. Did he end up somewhere?
He's at East Carolina, I believe. Is that
Okay.
right?
They need all the offensive help in the world, so I think he could play there for sure.
Okay.
Gilbert Edmonds, I did see that Shane Beamer had projected him as a starter. So next time you're busy, man, and you're on the road or I'm on the road, let's get Shane Beamer to be the guest host on the Nolecast. That's news to me that Edmonds is going to start.
I was not aware of that. Yeah, that was funny.
But he is good at working the media for sure. So I grabbed him for 450. I was thinking maybe they'd get some progression out of him because he did show some good snaps for South Carolina at times. But the consistency was lacking, I guess we can say. That was a non-injury one. I missed by 128 there, so accountability, it's on me. I thought Lyons would play more than he did, 280, and he played 144. That's a guy I could see playing some more this year, for sure.
Yeah.
Edwin Joseph was that was injury. Yeah.
Injured early. Yeah.
Because I had him for 280. They were really high on him, and I think probably remain high on him. And only played 45 due to injury. So I would say for the most part, when we missed, certainly I think all of your significant misses were injury. All but one or two. No, I think I was too high on Nicholson for a freshman linebacker. I thought he would play more. I took him for 240. He played 101. So it's certainly still a guy I think you got to be high on long term, but didn't end up playing 240. Graham is the other one. Is probably the reason why Nicholson didn't get on the field because they ended up playing Graham much more than either of us thought. I mean, he went for 40 to you, and he played 268.
Yeah,
which is pretty significant there. And then the top two linebackers, for the most part, stayed healthy enough to stay on the field and play well. Deloach, positive value 530, plays 563, and you had Bethune close to the pin, by the way.
Closest to the pin.
I think you're going to win that one with you. You took him 490. He went 489.
Yeah,
that's it doesn't suck, man.
That one was good. I'm looking for the STA kid. Did we not get him on here?
Conrad Hussey?
Yeah.
No, I had him. I had him 140, and he played 213.
Okay.
So this was a lot of fun. A lot of fun to draft. Let me see. Bless Harris was a plus value for him. I'm trying to think guys we didn't talk about yet. Pat Payton was one that you got. Do we have a pay up award, like a guy that you went really, really high on? And Mo Smith is the pay up award. I mean, you go in 630 on Mo, and him going 730 is and Byers as well. So your premium picks really hit. That was important there. This year's going to be tougher, I feel like, because there are more guys with opportunity, but fewer guys who are like proven studs.
Right.
Also, I have a prediction. With you talking about Malik, I think he's going to improve on his 0.84 yards per route run. Granted, he's got to come and prove it, but I do think Bama has some quarterback issues, honestly. And the fact that they're as loaded as they are and we're able to take Michigan to overtime is kind of impressive with Milroe to me. 2 yards per route run is considered like decent to good. 0.84 is like, what the hell? So at a certain point, I can't put that all on the kid. Like there's got to be some kind of other problems. Maybe if the snaps are consistently just wild or the quarterback can't stand in the right location or whatever. Perhaps maybe can't get to his third read in time. But all right, preseason, way preseason. We're still in January. Look at here. If I tell you today, little buy or sell here. Where's this? Okay, 2022. If I told you that Malik would give you 252 routes run at a PFF grade of 72, which is what Pokey Wilson did for you in 2022. You like, are you playing deal or no deal? Like you just you taking the case and walking away?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of possible. Like,
yeah, it's early. We'll see. Label me excited about what Benson has the ability to bring to the offense. I think he'll be featured in a very positive light. So we'll see.
I've been playing this game in my head.
Secret information just based off the kid's skills and role he has the ability to play, and the role that he didn't have the ability to play in his most recent offense. I think you got something in Benson.
Did Burrell land somewhere yet?
Haven't seen him listed anywhere. Legitimately one of the more highly thought of and respected kids on the team. This sounds cliche or almost dismissive, but a bright future in whatever he decides to do. Hard worker, really highly thought of by his peers.
He also got hurt too a couple times.
He got hurt. Yeah. He had a big. They thought he had, I don't know, multiple high thigh injuries, if I recall correctly. But yeah,
I'm sort of. I do not think the receiving core will be as good as this year's in terms of your two outside guys. That's probably not a hot take. You've got a very high chance of having two dudes drafted in the top 100, and maybe a first rounder. And I've seen some mock drafts where Johnny sneaks into the late second, which would be freaking incredible for him. But if you kind of painted this like a need one scenario, right? I need one of Malik and Brown to step up and be a real speed guy. Okay. I need one of the young guys, Hakeem or Dre or whomever it is, to step up. And I need one of the veterans, KP or Darion, to step up. I individually, none of those scenarios seem impossible to me. In fact, I think they probably seem likely. Norvell has a hell of a record of developing receivers, honestly. Go back and look almost everywhere he's been. He played receiver. I think he puts a lot of focus and effort into that position. So I'm kind of buying in, man. This is encouraging. I'm gonna say other positions. We don't do special teams on here typically. Any other? Oh, Cypress was another one that you paid up for, and he really, really hit.
Yeah, Cypress will be in Cypress, AZ, Earl Little. They'll be some of the more interesting picks next year because those are guys, kind of the defensive equivalent of guards and tackles on the offensive line. If you feel comfortable, that's the place to put a lot of your proverbial chips and have faith that absent injury, you're not just going to get totally burned on them.
I want to review Shaheem Brown. So he went for 520, which is a good number, and he stayed healthy and played a ton. At the same time, I think he didn't go for like 550 because they were still riding him pretty hard last year. Like you could tell Fuller and those guys were really, really, because they knew more was there and they knew he has real potential to be a star, and ended up playing fairly well for you this year. Ultimately, it played 742 snaps, so almost never came off the field. Reliable tackler, guy got better in coverage, I think, at times this year. That I like what they're doing in the secondary. I mean, Cypress DB play is I shouldn't say very variable. That's bad. But quite variable year to year. But it wasn't like Cypress sucked. He was still a good player. He didn't have the stats this year that he had at UVA. And I don't think that's necessarily like he's not a good player anymore. It's just DB play can be a little more up and down, right? All of a sudden, 1 year Jalen Ramsey sucks, and next year he's awesome again. Like, did he really suck? Or it's kind of random events happening, type thing. By the way, I saw Jalen this weekend.
Did you?
I did. Yeah. So
I'll also say, not that I, break down every piece of film or talk to people about it, but just from speaking with people in the program, a lot of the plays that immediately come to mind in people's mind as to things that they hold against Cypress were not his responsibility. He just, looks like it because he's a fast, athletic kid who chases a guy down the field 40 yards and ends up making a tackle or something like that. So, another year with Fintrell, really solid player. You got a pretty good idea as to what you're going to get from him. I look forward to seeing what that number looks like next year because, I think some of these more established defensive backs, you could probably flirt with a number that starts with 5 and not be, wildly off base. So
I agree with that. And yet there's still these young guys who I know the staff is pretty high on is going to push.
Yeah.
And that's it can't be not that they would, but it just definitely cannot be an off season of resting on the laurels there because some of these young guys will push and I think will potentially make a move or maybe more of a rotating basis. I think you have more now that they are sophomores. I think you have more young guys you trust. By the way, did you know that Clemson's true freshman played more snaps than Miami's?
I did not know that.
I feel like I see a different article and graphic about Miami true freshman playing time every single year, but yeah, that's a fact.
I did not know that. That's funny. It's funny.
Yeah. Did we? Oh, when we did the schedule release, we did the likelihood that you have 2 like national primetime games due to the other games happening? I think
we talked about that some. Yeah, that maybe the ACC was deliberate in some of their scheduling.
Did you see the comments out of North Carolina? We should probably table that for the next episode. The comments out of North Carolina.
Yeah, I do. I did see that, and that was very interesting and something that we should probably save for next time. One thing that I never save is the opportunity to go see my friends at Madison Social or any of the For the Table restaurant groups. They've got the new entity up and running here in advertisements for it around town, bud. Sounds a great place, and I'm very excited. And I'm just freestyling here, Matt, so forgive me. Social Kitchen is the name of the place, and Bud, as someone who is fond of searing a piece of meat or two, I believe they're the only place in Tallahassee that is going to offer like meats from Snake River Farms and places like that. So you can go and spend you a little money on price per pound over there and have all sorts of fantastic meat that you otherwise are served in, some of the better restaurants in Dallas, New Orleans, Atlanta, etc. So purveyor of exceptional meats. Doesn't surprise me that anything that Matt Thompson rather and his team are putting their name behind is at a very high level. But just another thing to keep in mind as you bop about Tallahassee. Social Kitchen now opened up there in the Northampton Shopping Center. So
that is extremely useful. I have you been grilling much lately?
I haven't. I've had the cover on my grill for like 6 or 7 months now. I need to get out there
or something.
Get it going. Yeah. I haven't had quite as much time to just tend to a fire for 45 minutes, but look forward to doing it. Certainly.
We got to get the Nolecast Instagram fired back up. Maybe a little. I thought about doing some instructional videos on like Tom Amansky. Like this is the instructional video gets the results in terms of grilling and smoking. I did make a. So I put on the Instacart that I wanted fillet tails to make medallions, and they were out. So the Instacart girl substituted the tomahawk. I was like,
there you go.
That's a good. I'm going to accept the substitution. Yes, this will work, and it was good to go, man. So that was solid last night. Had the boys out there helping me, which is not super helpful. One through a heavily painted wooden toast piece from his toy kitchen onto the other side of the Blackstone. So that was I had to devote some extra time to cleaning last night.
that is a lot of help, definitely.
Yeah. This is not really what I'm looking for. So we're not using that zone to cook with the paint. That was good. All right, is there anybody we missed on this that we're gonna kick ourselves as soon as we hit in recording? We only had Dent for 340. He played 446.
Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at that. The AZ number surprises me. A guy who really didn't start until final game, just to give you an idea as to how many snaps, 493, drafted at 350, ended up playing 493. That's a kid that I would put a 5 on next year, absent, other significant roster developments that we're not aware of. And yeah, I mean, to your point, the Edwin Josephs, the kid out of Jacksonville, whose name I'm blanking on right now. Kirkland, who looks like he's grown an inch since the last time I've seen him continue to physically develop. And then all the true freshmen in that room this year, going to be a hell of a lot of fun to watch. So a lot of efforting for snaps to be had by very talented younger defensive backs.
Speaking of Jacksonville, I saw Norvell was in Alabama last night with Pooch's visiting prospects, and I believe Fuller was going to Jacksonville. Yes, was today Tuesday? Yeah, I think he was going to Jacksonville today. So a lot of good defensive back prospects in Jacksonville that I'm sure he'll be checking out over there. Name we didn't mention, we probably should, because this is an injury one and he didn't miss this thing by much. And I think your number would be heavily green had he not been injured, because he was coming on and they were starting to play him in meaningful, relied upon spots on national TV. And that's Hakeem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Took him 130, played 94. I don't know, am I reading too much into the fact they put him in there in the game against Duke on like a critical third down and trusted him to? It wasn't some gimmick. It wasn't some like, hey, here's a screen we're designing for you because your speed. Like they're like, hey, get in there, run a real route, get open, catch the ball.
Yeah. Like, no, the Duke game did look like a guy that was right on the edge of really starting to break out. Suffers a high ankle injury, either I think the Monday following that game or the Sunday following that game or something, and it takes him a while to get back to speed.
Oh, Malcolm Ray is the other one you had a nice hit on. 170, he played 274.
Yeah. No, that is Malcolm emerged in a very positive manner this year. Another kid who's landed elsewhere. Malcolm, I saw where he went to Rutgers, and Malcolm, super nice kid, very respectful. Certainly wish him the best. Liked Malcolm a lot. So
I know it's somewhat of a loss, like not a major impact player, but a useful guy, I think probably good for culture and whatnot. But that's sort of what kind of your pie in the sky, like what's the portal for? Mm-hmm. He's got 1 year left to play, maybe 2.
I think he's got 1. Yeah, go do it. Be featured, play in the Big Ten. Not anything you can hold against a guy. Yeah.
I know Joe, the DC at Rutgers, pretty well, and I think they're pretty excited to have him. So that's, and they're also very excited. He didn't tell me this, but they're very excited to not have to play Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan every single year. get some of that Big Ten West on the schedule. A little Minnesota every now and then doesn't hurt. A little Western.
That's funny.
So cool, man. I congrats on beating me down. That was a hell of a beatdown, and it might be other than the first year we did this, that might be the largest beatdown we've had. So pretty cool there. What's next? So we need to do a offensive transfers episode, which they have since added a player from Harvard. So I'm glad we actually waited on that. Not that I knew that was coming, but it was a possibility, certainly. And we also have a mailbag episode from some of the Patreon. So if you haven't dropped your questions in there, make sure y'all do that. I'll probably throw up a post if you want to respond to it, but a lot of y'all just DM us on there, and that's totally fine as well. And then we can do that. And then probably the next week we'll do maybe I'll do like a little solo, like reset the recruiting board. Here's kind of the preliminary thoughts, needs, guys we've seen around the around the Southeast that could make sense type thing. It should be you just had a 10-win year and a 13-win year, so a good bit to sell on the recruiting trail. I think the end of April will be quite friendly to you in terms of the draft and be able to sell that. I'm sure the graphics guys are, because they have kind of had to sit it out for a couple of years. Not a lot of guys been drafted early on, but this is going to be a nice draft for them. And you think they might feature development a little bit in some of these graphics? Progression, maybe?
I think you'll hear a little bit about that too.
Could be. Is there a chance Bernardo gets a Senior Bowl invite based on how he's been practicing?
Very possible, in my opinion. Yeah.
Wow. He looks like he belongs, man.
He's tough kid. Wouldn't put a whole lot against.
No, sir.
That's a different dude. He's very focused. Very, very focused.
That will be a focus, I think, of ours, is figuring out who are your new leaders, especially on that side of the ball, right? Because when I think about, and they all do it in different ways, but a Bernardo and a Jarian and Fisk and Verse and both backers, right? That is a lot of guys who had played a lot of ball who kind of played with some purpose to them.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah.
There's a lot of skill coming back. I'm interested to see who steps up and fills that leadership void.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a question we really had about last year's team. It's a question I think I expect it to be answered, but I'm curious as to who does the answering.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have to do my real job now that it is officially the morning time. So I'm sure you got meetings today.
I've got a couple of important ones. I do. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, I'll enjoyed it as always. Shoot, I think that's pretty much it.
All right, y'all. This has been the Snap Count Draft, something we do every year, something Bud came up with way back in the day. Love to do it. Gives us an idea as to how the year played out, maybe a little bit of a broader idea as to how position groups are impacted by injuries elsewhere on the field. And we'll do it again next year. But with that, we'll wrap it up. And like Bud said, we'll be back in the next couple of days with a couple other content ideas that we have ready to bring forward.
See you, bud.
All right, man.